Good evening, good morning to all of you. A very warm welcome and thank you so much for joining this webinar today. It's been nearly 10 weeks, I guess, since all of us have been in this work from home mode. Zoom has become an integral part of our lives. Virtual coffee chats have become the norm, and work-life balance has taken on a whole new meaning for many of us. As we're all learning to live in and adapt to the new normal, the question on everyone's minds is, where do we go from here? How long will this last? We're all missing our offices, our colleagues, the hallway conversations, our filter coffees, and so much more. So as governments around the world, and especially in India, start to allow offices to open up in a limited way, the big question in front of us is, should we open our offices now? Or when should we open our offices? And if we do, how do we open? What is the new normal? So many questions before we can actually get back to work. So joining me today to discuss this and much more, we have a very distinguished panel. We have with us three CEOs who have built very successful SaaS businesses from India and taken it global. So I'd like to welcome Krish Subramanian from Chargebee, a very popular figure in the SaaS world, and he leads the world-class SaaS company Chargebee, which is into subscription billing solution for online businesses. Suresh Sambandam from Kissflow. They're a company that's very well known in the cloud-based process management software area. And of course, Girish Mathrubootham of Freshworks, the SaaS unicorn that's valued at over $3.5 billion today. So welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a very warm welcome to our audience too. We have over 500 people who've joined us right now and many more who are yet to joining us from multiple locations. I want a quick call out to the audience. First of all, thank you for joining us. We want to make this an interactive session. We want to make this something that is useful for all of you. So while we hear our panelists, we also have a Q&A section where you can type in your questions, and we'll make sure that we get to answering as many questions as we can get to as well. So there are lots of questions in everyone's mind about this subject. So without further ado, let's get started. I'd like to kickstart this conversation by asking our panelists, how are you all doing in this new normal? How are you and your companies dealing with this whole lockdown situation? How is your business faring and how are your employees doing? Perhaps we'll start with Girish and then go to Krish and then come to you, Suresh.
Sure. Thank you, Suman. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to all of you. And nice to, actually, it would have been better to meet all of you physically, but I think nice to meet you virtually. So I'd like to start off by saying at Freshworks, we were working from 13 offices. We are now working from 3,000 offices, right? So I think that's the way we look at it. And like most of us here, probably, I was also in the beginning of March. I think we just I managed to just on time move travel from India to US after finishing our board meeting, and I was like everybody else, hey, this is a virus, is like a flu, it will go away and so on. But every passing day brought on the reality of how big this has become. And in fact, this is like we actually had, because we were global and we had 13 offices, the lockdown itself for us happened in phases. Like we had actually implemented lockdown in Europe and San Mateo even before we locked down Chennai. But like even our Chennai office, we locked down before the government made it mandatory because we could see how things were panning out in other parts of the world. So we actually, being a SaaS company, we had business continuity in place. I would say it was relatively much easier for us. All of our employees have laptops, so it was easier for us to move to a work from home situation. And we use a lot of, all of our tools are SaaS, and we use our own tools. So I think I can imagine how hard it would be for like a non-tech company. It would be much harder. And especially when you don't have people who, or if your systems are not online, or if your IT is not geared up. So I think we were able to implement our business continuity in a fairly straightforward, seamless manner. For our developers, we already had VPN access to access production systems. So all of the collaboration tools are already there. I think even though all employees had laptops, like we had to give, like we had to procure dongles for everybody. And I would like to hear from the other panelists if they actually had to provide dongles, because I was surprised. I thought in this day and age, everybody would have a mobile phone and there's 3G and 4G everywhere. But we had to, and also one of the things we did for our employees in terms of workplace is, see, we actually announced an allowance for setting up a home office. So where people were allowed to actually buy either a nice ergonomic chair or a big monitor or headsets. Or so we actually did this early on. Hopefully many of them were able to get it before the lockdown of deliveries happened. So I think broadly, we also pledged not to lay off any employee. So we have not laid off anybody due to COVID. And we're carrying forward all of our employees. And we also have a no one left behind strategy, which is as Freshworks, we have 3,000 employees, and Chennai itself, we have more than 2,000 employees. We have a lot of vendors who depend on Freshworks, like from our food suppliers to our cab company to our security guards and so on. So one thing we have done is we have actually started taking on the payroll costs for 350 of our support staff who are not on Freshworks role, but who are employed with our caterers and our cab companies. So we just wanted to make sure that people who depend on Freshworks for their livelihood don't lose their livelihood. So till now, we have been continuing their salaries. So I think like all of us here, I also hope that things will get back to normal soon and we'll all get back to at least some kind of new normal. So this is, yeah, with that, I would probably like to hand it over to Krish.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me here. Really appreciate it. Thanks for asking about the business. Like the business we are in, I think we are very fortunate and grateful that we are in one recurring revenue business, right? Meaning there is a continuous stream of revenue that is coming in, and then we are able to build on that. Very fortunate in that front. And as a subscription infrastructure provider, it is also an essential service. So on all those fronts, definitely grateful for the space we are in and doing well as a business. Thank you. We are a team of about 400 people distributed across 5 different offices globally, with about 300 people in India, in Chennai, 350 people in Chennai. And as Girish mentioned, thankfully we have been in a setup where the business continuity plan, all of that involves being able to work remotely. So we have been able to do it. But having said that, this was abrupt, where working from offices, and then suddenly there was a hard reset to just everybody to go home and start working. But I wouldn't consider us to be a 100% remote team, right? In terms of how we were remote from the beginning. The team has adapted beautifully to step up a couple of notches to ensure that we are able to serve customers and continuing to do that. So that's the current state of where the business is. What do you, Suresh?
Okay, so yeah, thanks for having me. And COVID has actually, COVID came in as a big surprise for us, but I'm very, very happy and excited in terms of like how, we were able to adopt it. I wanted to, share some small pictures so that you guys can probably understand this a little bit better. The way we approach this is, we had 2 problems to worry about. One is boosting employee morale. Other one is actually maintaining productivity during the COVID time. So the way we looked at employee morale is like, there are 4 or 5 different things we went about doing. One is, we did a AMA with myself because people had a lot of fear and doubt and all of that. And then we did something like lockdown diaries, where all our employees got on together did sort of internal podcasts, like 54 of them did it over 15 episodes, and then we internally played it. We also did something called a lockdown challenge. This is a 21-day challenge. We did it during the COVID time. Then we are every week we actually met on Friday on a virtual town hall. So these are all these activities we did to motivate and keep the motivation going. And we also did something like a spiritual exercise of the entire company learning through a book called Leadership and Self-Deception. This basically helps the individual employees to internally understand who they are as an individual. This is something that I would recommend. Of course, one of the other things that we did is nothing motivates like money. So we did not stop our appraisals. We did our appraisals. We did our salary raises. We also did our promotions. We are also continuing to hire in a selective basis. So all of this is keeping our employees' motivation to a good level. All these things that we did for the motivation for employees, and from a productivity angle, we took a little bit of a strategic view. We reorganized our entire company in terms of business units under each product lines, so that it becomes much easier for us to manage as small teams. Then we completely moved our company to a OKR model, from a output-based model to an outcome-based model. So that's really the kind of summary of things that we have done during the COVID time. In fact, like Krish said, we are in the recurring business, which means that we don't have to worry about making new sale. Even if the new sale doesn't happen, we are lucky enough to do that. With that foundation, this COVID has come in some sort of a blessing in disguise for us, because to re-engineer and rediscover our company and then align a number of processes that we've always wanted to do but never had the time to do it, we were able to do all of that. So that we are actually coping a lot better than what we initially thought. We expected a 20% productivity down, but what we saw is a 20% productivity increase. So that's, with that note, let me stop here and then.
That's really nice. That's a lovely note. Yes, go ahead, Girish.
Can I add a point? I think
yes,
I would like to reiterate super awesome, Suresh, what you have done. And I think like I would like to add to everybody on the call, the founders who are there. So there are two things which Suresh touched upon are very, very important. We also saw the same thing, which is like communication from the CEO or from the leadership. I would say that in the last 2 months, I've actually spent more time with employees than I have in the probably in the last 1 year, right? So because all of us have time now on our hands, and being in meeting different teams, understanding what they are going through, and actually communicating with them specific to those teams' problems, and handling different geographies. So I think people really need it at this time. I would say, like all founders should actually be spending more time. Do not assume that no news is good news. People need to hear you and see you. I think Suresh, that's a very good point. And the second aspect that Suresh touched upon, which is the mental wellness of employees, right? So I think that is also a very, very phenomenal aspect, because we don't realize that this can be big. So what we did at Freshworks is, in terms of see, our cultural value is happy work environment. So we actually made sure if everybody is at home, how do we take our happy work environment, which we had created in the office, and move it there? So we have everything from online DJs to yoga and meditation classes to fitness to competitions. We did a hackathon, which was remote, to I think we also had a best Zoom background competition and so on. And I think, yeah, the OKR framework, which we had already implemented it. And I think that's really good in terms of getting the org aligned to the central plan. So I think I would just stress on those two aspects: communication from the leadership and mental wellness. These are two very important things that everybody in the audience should consider.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. it's amazing to see how everyone's been very agile in terms of adapting to this new normal. It's great to see the creativity that has come out. But most importantly, I think what I've heard from all of you is the fact that, there are some core principles, which is keep your employees front and center, making sure that we stay true to our values at this point in time. I really like how everybody is innovated during this time and just been very quick to adapt to this. And it sounds like we've all adapted really well to the new normal. Productivity is up and, folks are engaging online. So the question is, now that governments around the world, and including India, are allowing offices to open up in a limited way, should we open? Should we continue to work in this new normal? And the big question is, when is the right time to call employees back to office? So I'm going to turn this to you, Krish. And you mentioned that you've got employees across multiple locations. You've got an annual recurring revenue business as well. How are you thinking about it? Are you thinking about calling them back anytime soon, or do you think you're going to remain in this work from home mode for longer?
At this point, we are considering working from home for the foreseeable future. When I say foreseeable future, at least until it feels safe. Most of the offices remain shut at least till end of this quarter, till end of June for us. For the simple reason that we do not have to put employees at risk at this point of time. So we are cautiously being opening up in terms of that decision. I think when it comes to how the reset happened, it was abrupt, right? And we have been engaging with the people on a week-on-week basis from a monthly all hands. We have all switched to a weekly all hands kind of format, trying to understand how things are. I think the situation is very different in different parts of the world, where the governments are trying to open up the economy to ensure that there is more commerce, and then people are gaining employment and we adjust to the new normals. But at the same time, there are industries where the industries that we work in, we are able to fortunately earn our living by working from home. And given that advantage, I think the way we are thinking is not put people at risk, but at the same time, also not let go of a good crisis go to waste in terms of how we look at ourselves inward. What I mean by that is, if I have to do a self-assessment of are we really a remote team? Before COVID, I would say we are probably on a 3 out of 10 on a 3 on a scale of 10 when it came to are we really remote? We may be distributed in geographies, but we were still dependent on, instead of turning around and asking a coworker in Chennai, we might actually jump on a Zoom call and then do it, right? And people were beginning to still do that, and people adjusted to it a little bit on a maybe 5 out of a 10 when it comes to remote work. So to come back to the point related to, are we thinking about opening offices? Of course, we are all inclined, we are all very social to a point where we are addicted to office and seeing the faces and drawing energy from that. So we would like that. But at the same time, we are thinking about a hybrid approach where the choice, there is a reset that is hard reset happening in terms of work preferences of employees globally, which means that people might actually choose to come or not come, which means that how are we going to be adapting to a new normal where everybody might choose to work remotely, but office becomes optional with multiple locations is how we are thinking at this point of time. So we are more likely to move into a hybrid approach with the preference in the hands of employees at least through 2020 at this point of time, whenever we get a chance to open the offices.
Okay. Suresh or Girish, would you like to chime in? How are you thinking? Go ahead.
From Kissflow standpoint, right now we have deferred opening office till June.
Till June.
Till June, we have permanently informed our employees we won't be opening the office till June for sure. But what is really happening is there is a paradigm change that is happening in our own minds. Some of our assumptions have been completely busted, right? The notion of attendance or check-in, coming to off, all that theories have been completely busted, and a lot of new learnings have come. I am personally thinking we were supposed to go to a 35,000 square foot office, meaning just before the COVID. We were just about to sign the contract. And then COVID happened. Some negotiation went bad, and then that guy went back and forth, and COVID happened. Then we said, oh, we pulled it back. And we're never going to buy that space, for sure. And we are seriously evaluating. We will move our company to a full-fledged remote work model. We will basically surrender our probably an office, probably have a much smaller office just for people who want to huddle and sort of meet up. The definition of hybrid for me is a bit different. The hybrid definition is not like employees will choose, whether they want to come or not. We are letting the entire team to decide. A team has to decide, like if they have to go work remote, means it's mandatory for the entire team to work remote. If one employee makes a choice, then it becomes a little complicated for us. So it's a team decision, and pretty much we are hearing like 80% of employees want to work remote, and they're quite comfortable. And we are thinking we will move to a model of hybrid where once in a month we will have some sort of a gala event where we will bring all employees, meet together, have dinner, fun and all of that, and then go home and just sort of work remote again. So that is the new definition of hybrid that we are thinking. Hybrid is not like some employees will work in office and some employees will work in home. That's not what we are thinking. So that's I'm clearly seeing our company is moving towards this new paradigm.
Very interesting. Girish, would you like to share how you're thinking about it?
Yeah, so love it, Suresh. Amazing how you can make these bold changes. And I think at Freshworks, see, there are, to just give context, right? So I think when you think about the workforce, I would generally put it into broadly two categories. So there are people who have a very good work from home setup, and for them commute is actually bad, and like they would actually work from home whenever given a chance, right? Even when we did not have a work from home policy, there have been asks for that. And I've always been a believer in the office, in the magic of the office space, right? Like having personally, again, I agree with Suresh that those paradigm shifts are happening everywhere. But I've always believed that as a fast growing startup, communication systems are important, and we all needed to be in one. In fact, I kept everybody in one room in Chennai, right? Like one building HP, because we never ventured out of that. So even today we have 2,000 people where everything is mostly contiguously connected. So I think the other part of the workforce is there are people who don't have that productive setup, like even whether it's San Francisco or Chennai, younger folks who do not have a very productive setup. So they have been asking us about how can they have a more productive office setup. And so while from a policy standpoint, we have actually we have already communicated, or we have already decided at a company level that everybody can work from home till the end of the year. So the company will not force anybody to come to office till the end of the year. So that is completely up to the employee to decide to travel if and when they want to travel. And I think broadly, like there is no need for anybody to physically be in the office except for the facilities team. So, but having said that, from an office standpoint, what we have done is we have already let go of all the smaller offices, the WeWorks and the CoWorks, or we are in the process of letting it go. But we have made significant investments in Chennai, in San Mateo, and in Berlin. So these are offices that we are going to keep. And from a workplace standpoint, we are ready to reopen, right? But we are not going to rush in. But when I say we are ready, like, so we will start small and scale over time. Basically, we have done everything from the sanitization to thermal screening at the entrance, to floor planning, to how the new seating will look like, how would you enable social distancing, making sure everybody has personal protective equipment, limit face-to-face meetings, don't allow people to crowd in meeting rooms, crowd in cafeteria. So in fact, our cafeteria vendor has come up with a mobile ordering solution where people can actually order from the mobile, and then they'll get notified in if food is going to get ready in the next few minutes and so on. They can just go and pick it up. It's all contactless. So how do you sanitize meeting rooms? I think our teams have done a extensive playbook on workplace readiness and workforce readiness. So also, like for example, for the workforce, we are doing something like a vulnerability score, like who, like if you're living with older parents or younger children, then you probably don't want to come into office, but more healthier younger adults who are living alone as bachelors, maybe they want to come. Also transport, like will people take their own cars, or if they take company provided cab, what is the social distancing? How do you ensure that? How, like, nobody should be allowed to travel in public transport. So I think what we have done is our teams are ready, right? In terms of, and the planning is not easy, right? There is a lot to consider. Like imagine if one person comes into office and actually tests positive, right? So what will happen? Like, do you go lock down the entire office again? So the protocol for all of this, we have built as playbooks, and I think we'll be happy to share that playbook with all of you in terms of how and when we can plan to reopen. And I think personally, while and I think this has also changed one thing for us at Freshworks is we will always in future have a work from home policy where people will have the flexibility to work from home. But we are believers in the magic of the office space. So as Krish said, and me personally, like definitely would want to get back to the normal and meet people and have those exciting in-person. We will come over this COVID, and I am hoping at some point this will be a distant memory of the past, and we'll come back to the
I just wanted to add something here, Girish. What I'm seeing is there is some completely new possibilities that are happening. For example, see, one of the things, there are 2 points I'll probably mention, right? And then just stop here. One thing is I always hate the night shift because I don't want to do the night shift myself. But why should I force my employees to do night shift? But we had no other choice because we have customers, same for Freshworks, same for Chargebee, right? I actually rethinking that, can we go to a nearshore destination in somewhere in Central America, like Costa Rica? I just were doing some research, and hire our sales teams who are actually supposed to do the night shift and the customer success teams there, or whoever is interested from an India team can move over there, right? Because now this is a true possibility, and everybody can have a life, and they don't have to spoil their health and stuff like that. So it's actually an eye opener for me to think about completely new ways of reorganizing the company. That is one. The second thing is, I'm actually thinking we are going to push all our employees to go back to their native places instead of staying in cities like Chennai, right? Because 2 things going to happen. Because see, I see a lot of people may be following me, like I have a lot of political ideology related views, and if you really look at it, I'm a big believer of true local, right? And equality of urban versus rural population. And all of us sitting in rural, we are not able to get the same, sitting in urban, we're not able to get the same opportunity for people in rural. So even my senior managers, I'm saying, like, they are from places like Kodaikanal or near there and all of that, right? So I'm saying, why don't you go there? People come back and say, schools is not there, good schools. But if they go there, those infrastructure will start happening there because they have the purchasing power. We're not going to reduce their salary or anything like that. This whole thing can turn around in a very beautiful way. And I think these are the 2 big, massive changes. One is true local. The second one is like nearshore concept. Don't have to burden employees on night shift and stuff like that. So these are some of the other angles that I'm actually thinking through. I don't know. It's a little prematurely I'm sharing it here, but I'm seriously thinking about this. There are a lot of internal conversations that already happened inside the company.
Suman, can I add a point
Yes,
on the night shift, right? So I think, this is something which we have also considered in the past, right? Like there is a lot of like asks from employees on night shift. So I think one of the things that we thought about was, hey, these are all job opportunities for our youngsters, right? See, it's very easy economically to move all the salespeople to like whether it's Costa Rica or Mexico or California, right? But then what happens is those countries also would want companies to hire local talent, etc. So in fact, we have always been believers if India is a product nation, and we all are contributing to that, the talent pool that is here. So in fact, I also understand, and in our case, if you look over the years, I think people start in the night shift, and then they after a few years they move to a different shift or a different role. So we've created a career path for that, primarily because I think one thing that we are all doing as global companies, but who started in Chennai, is creating that ecosystem or talent pool of people who can do that. And this thought has come to me so many times, because as CEOs, none of us want our employees to go through that pain of working in that night shift. Especially, I would say at Freshworks, till 2 a.m. it's all fun, right? We have like dosa and omelette and like a full cafeteria for midnight snacks, and people enjoy. I think it's only the last few hours which becomes really hard. And we have considered again places like Costa Rica in the past. The key question is, hey, what about our jobs? For economically, it makes a very easy decision to hire in Costa Rica, but will we lose employment opportunity for it? That's the dilemma in our minds.
It will be only first 20%. Maximum will be 20%, and in that 20%, 10% of the people at least will move from India there. So it will be a very marginal impact, but it gives a lot more comfort. It is just a thought. I don't know whether we're going to do it.
No. Everything is correct, Suresh, but you have to just assume that if you are 200 people or 500 people now, you will grow, right? And as you grow, like if you're creating the next 5,000 jobs, if 1,000 jobs are going to be created in Costa Rica versus Chennai, the politician in you has to also decide.
That's a good point.
You made my life complicated
now. I have a...
All right. Yeah, I think we should go to the other next questions, I guess.
No, this is sorry, Krish, did you want to say something?
No, I think following up on a point that Girish and Suresh were making about remote talent, right? I think there were some people who were asking also questions about the talent, right? What happens on the talent side, right? There is one is what the company wants, but what do the people actually want, right? Because this is a big change which people are adjusting to, and at the same time there are going to be newer opportunities that emerges for everybody, right? I think the beautiful opportunity out of this is people actually learning these playbooks and then working part of these companies, product companies and all of that will also have newer opportunities within the same ecosystem to earn a living from any part of the world to work for companies. I think that will create newer vectors in which this competition talent war will happen, and newer opportunities for companies also to hire. I think it goes both ways. And I think we will probably rethink the way we will have to think about talent acquisition, and then what do we really incentivize people if it is not actually 100% office, school, office spaces and all of that. If that is not your selling point, then what happens, right? And embracing remote work, how do we ensure that all our colleagues are actually making it enjoyable, but working remotely? That means the skill level that is necessary when it comes to writing and being able to put it in words, not just on video, rather on paper, and then be able to share that over digital documents, and then still create that connectedness and make it enjoyable for people to work with each other's work, build on it. I think those are all going to be newer learnings for all of us to adjust to.
I think, so last point, Suman, sorry. So I think, what Suresh said has got me thinking, right? I think maybe, see, a good via media could be that, hey, we move from big central offices to multiple remote smaller offices, right? Like, let's say if Suresh is saying, whether it's Kodaikanal or Coimbatore or Tanjavur, like if you can have smaller offices where at any point of time 20-30 people can actually be there, maybe we'll move from these massive offices in the city to distributed offices, and that would be fun. We can actually be it's no longer work from home, right? It's work from anywhere. So we can actually be traveling to different offices in every month and be working from a different
This city. Is a great time to be building co-working spaces everywhere, right? The small.
No, actually, it's the worst time to be building co-working spaces.
Worst time to be
Everybody,
building, but a great time to be ideating about it, to rethink.
No, but I think it's a different type of co-working model, right? It's not the VC ones like that people.
Right. I love this discussion, and I think the kind of ideas that we are having right now, the kind of new thinking around the whole workplace and the workforce, I don't think we've ever thought about this before, right? I think our paradigm has typically been that the best way to either develop products, ideate, or engage employees has all been in an office. And now to completely break that mold and think about, why don't we have offices in Tanjore or Coimbatore or Kodaikanal and make it easy for people to work from anywhere? I think it's just fascinating. But in the interest of time, I'm going to change track a little bit over here, and then we'll go into Q&A as well. All of you are CEOs of big tech companies, right? And there are a number of tech solutions that are now becoming available to deal with this new normal. People are talking about technology for social distancing, for workforce planning, monitoring health. And given that all of your companies are in the forefront of using technology to solve business problems, are you looking at any technology solution for this? Whether it is for the new normal, whether it's for engaging folks, how are you thinking about this? You want to start? Or Suresh,
Sure.
you want to start? Go ahead.
Sure, I can do that. Meaning, it's actually another pleasant surprise that has happened for us is you introduced me as Kissflow as a business process management software, but just before a few months ago, we transformed from there into a digital workplace, which is basically a unified suite where all work can happen digitally in a single unified environment. And that is what Kissflow has transformed, and we launched it last year towards the third quarter. Now this COVID has actually, because remote work is going to happen a lot more, work from home is going to happen, we see this as a great opportunity for us. So we're not going to launch any more new tools, because this is in fact how we didn't think about this COVID going to happen, but of course we thought eventually future wise everything will go online. So work will be truly become digital, especially for the knowledge industry. So we have already invested and built a platform. I think we are going to simply double down and on making the market adoption for that. That's really what we are going to do. We're going to build any more new, because this is quite a big platform we have built.
Nice. Krish, anything from you before I turn it to you, G?
Right. I think most people are familiar with the workplace productivity products that work for them. I think there are others that we are surprisingly getting introduced to, which are very interesting, which are built on top of platforms like Slack and others, where one, it helps in engagement, understanding the mood of the people from mental wellness perspective, where it checks in people. And then we use something called, I think, Donut, or maybe there are other variations of that, which actually does random connections of two people in remote locations. In the same company, it connects two people to say, have like a 20-minute check-in from time to time. So it's more about connections, mental wellness, and all of that is something that I'm learning. The team is continuously introducing from others, which is helpful. And of course, there are a number of other services that are available, but those are also becoming tools. For example, we use one-to-one help for mental wellness counseling that people are able to reach and seek help. But there are alternate methods, and just creating newer opportunities where people are building tools as well as discovering more of those. I think I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Krish. Girish, anything from you?
Yeah, before I talk about technology specific to COVID, I would like to say, tell Suresh, hey, we are all part of the digital workplace now, right? So in fact, what we see in Freshservice or like CRM being available to employees from where they are working, or IT help desk, or employee self-service portal, employee engagement bots. So I think we just didn't realize that how valuable this would be in a COVID situation, right? Like, or even, I think digital workplace is a much broader solution, and even Slack and Zoom and other things, the collaboration aspect of a digital workplace come together along with the core products that we have. But specifically on the COVID situation, I think probably we didn't discuss this. I'm surprised that we didn't discuss this. I think we've not understood the enormous amount of work that it is going to generate, and technology is going to play a part. So, see, okay, if you assume that at some point we are going to reopen and businesses are going to reopen and people are going to start to come to office, even in a limited form, like say 20%, 30%, right? So there is a lot of technology that is possible. In fact, our teams are working on some of those. So one of the thing is like we have a employee self-assessment or any visitor self-assessment form where people can, it's like a bot which asks certain questions, and then at the end of it, if you are not suspected to be COVID positive, you'll be given the visitor pass, or if you're not, then you'll be probably denied or put under special notification so that somebody can do the checks even more rigorously. Or shift management, right? When you say, okay, the government guidelines are going to be that 20% or 30% people can come, how do you build technology or use technology for shift management, for resource mapping? How do you ensure which rooms, meeting rooms should be allowed, which meeting rooms are too, where people are sitting too close to each other? So even having dashboards or command center, I think the facilities people will have to start using a lot more technology in terms of monitoring all these processes, all these resources, utilization rates, and so on. So I think there is a lot of opportunity for some of the founders here. I think you should be thinking about the scenario where in many businesses, people are going to start to come back to work. So how can we actually enable the facilities people to do better? Like I think if Facilio is actually on the call, they should be thinking about how to use this as a strategy to bring technology to bring back people to work. So, and we are actually building some tools from our own teams are building it more for Freshworks, but once we have something useful, happy to share it also.
Thank you. I'm just a little cautious about the time. I want to make sure we keep a lot of time for Q&A because I can see that we've got about 65 questions online already. Mm-hmm. But before we go there, I'm just going to quickly do a very quick roundtable and ask you, if you had to say work from home, work from office, what would be your preference? Krish?
Work from office.
Work from office. Girish?
Work from office.
I think I'm going to side with remote work. I actually wanted to, is this the last question before you open the Q&A?
This is only, you have to choose A, B, work from home or work from office. No explanation.
Yeah. This is a craving. Suresh, this is a craving time. You miss something, you want something.
I already chosen to side with remote work or work from home. So, yeah. No, actually, I also wanted to say something. See, I wanted to differentiate remote work from home.
Yeah, work from anywhere.
Yeah, so I think Girish said it well, actually work from anywhere. I actually even like the idea of distributed small offices. Actually, Girish, that's a brilliant idea. In fact, I wanted to build on top of it when I go back after this thing, because that's a brilliant idea. I think we need to start thinking in that angle. See, Girish, you always used to say, if you remember, see, there is a huge India advantage for the SMB SaaS businesses that we are building. I actually feel we have an equivalent opportunity for that, remote companies versus non-remote companies. We will get into that kind of a tremendous differentiator and advantage. And for whatever reason, COVID has given us this great opportunity to sort of experiment that, forced experimentation on top of us, right? I mean, we could never have done this. I think I'm actually, see, there are two approaches we can take. One is incrementally build on top of existing processes that our companies are following, build on top of their tools, increase the facilities, do the spacing, do 3-meter distance, all that stuff. That I'm thinking of is like we're trying to build on top of something that already exists incrementally. But if you go back to first principles and then say, what does this really mean? Should we really make all those changes incrementally on top of it? Or go back and completely relook at everything much more fundamentally. I think that's really the one that is in front of us, and I feel I'm trying to catch that one. Hopefully it's going to be beneficial. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, see, there are pros and cons, Suresh. We all didn't touch upon one point, right? With this work from anywhere, what is going to change is access to talent. See, we have been in a situation where so many people wanted to work for Freshworks, but they were not able to move to Chennai, right? So whether it's Bangalore or anywhere else in India. So I think, also think about many of our, I've seen in many of my friend circles, like women in India who choose to take care of family, right? And they have younger kids. They don't have this option of flexi work, and especially when we didn't have that. So now it opens up that whole talent pool, right? So we can actually see people can work for 3-4 hours during the day and maybe take care of their family, and then maybe work 2-3 hours whenever they can find the time. So this flexi timing really actually opens up the whole talent pool. I would almost say in India, especially 30 to 40% of the population would probably be like, especially in cities, I would say, I know many, we all know many women who have sacrificed their career in order to take care of family, right? So that will be a big game changer for this. So I think the new normal is very, very clearly, there is going to be a new model. I just think okay, again, it also depends on what you already have, Suresh. If somebody is really small and new, you can be much bolder in experimentation. I think since we have made all these investments, we have to think about keeping the offices. But moving forward, I think this is changing the commercial real estate industry forever, right? It's important, interesting to see. Again, even in Valley, it's divided. Mark Benioff just bought the tower next to Salesforce for $150 million. But people are actually asking him, hey, you're buying this tower, who's going to come into the office, right? So I think, see, there are two things. One, will people get sick and tired of this work from home, that they want to go out and be in an office? I think that also there is some truth to that statement, because we are all social human beings. We don't like to be sitting at home all the time. But these big offices, dense cities, which are vulnerable, what if like the iPhone, there's a new model of COVID that is launching every year, right? So like COVID-19, COVID-20 and COVID-21, then we are all screwed anyway. So I think that the new normal could be, you're right, Suresh, in terms of there is going to be something fundamentally changing. I think the distributed clusters could be that we have to cater to both the needs, the need to be social and the need to work from anywhere. And I think that's probably how we will see this evolving over time.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you.
Thank you. With that, we'll just segue to some of the Q&A, and I will read out some of the questions that we're seeing online.
Before you go there, I
Yes.
just saw one of the questions saying that Suresh is like Kamal Hassan.
You are there, no? Tala is there.
Okay.
That's a great segue into the Q&A. So I'll start with the first one, which is, I think, very pertinent to the discussion we were just having. We have somebody who's written in saying, thanks for collaborating on this webinar, great info. There's a lot of value placed over the startup office culture that attracts young talent. Do you think it'll be impacted if startups follow remote working? How do you bring this whole culture to life, which is a big part of why young talent, or actually just any kind of talent, wants to work in a startup today?
Is this for me or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, I think Girish expressed a lot of concerns. I think this will be the number one concern if we go remote. I have actually, because the physical office, actually one of the things we experience is that we invested very, very heavily in culture, meaning extraordinarily high, because we hired a full-time, like a leadership level person when we were just 100 people with a role called Culture Shepherd, which I don't think any other company has done it. So we have done extremely high investment, and that had helped us when we went remote. It helped us tremendously. But I'm seeing one big problem of inducting new employees who have never seen. Like there are 5 employees who have joined us during the COVID season. I really don't know those employees. We used to have things like lunch with CEO and these kind of mini programs, a part of our culture exercise, because we want to integrate people into our current cultural process. But I don't know how to do all of that, right? So this is a big challenge. I think this will be the #1 deterrent for remote work, and I really don't have an answer as to how we will crack it. I think that's probably what Girish is also betting on. So I think we don't have
that's an important problem, right? Even if you have remote offices, right? Like for example, if we open a new office in Netherlands and Paris, like getting employees onboarded on culture there when none of us are there actually is a harder challenge. If everybody's at home, home does not give you it's hard for onboarding and culture. Definitely agree on that. So that's where we need to have a balance, and hopefully, I wish like all the problems that come and go in our life, this will also.
The question here is: do you think interpersonal issues will be less in work from home or more?
It could be okay. If you're saying people are in office and interpersonal issues are more. I think mental state is also important. It requires a lot of maturity and positivity to stay motivated at home. Everybody's not the same. So that's my answer. Okay. So like even at home, I could see like my kids too. I have 2 high school boys, right? And I have like my wife and kids are at home. If you're always at home and seeing the same people, and so it's easy for them to lose their cool once in a while. And we've all been through that, right? So it takes a lot of effort to, at sometimes you have to just go away from all of it, right? So I think that escape is needed. So the COVID is teaching us a lot of things on the importance of the small things in life, about happiness, about discipline, and I think, but it's also teaching us.
Also teaching us that office was playing an entertainment role as well, which we never thought office is an entertainment role, right? Right? When we come to office to meet with people, entertain, and when you're stuck at home, we feel so drained.
Yeah.
Right. There is one question related to this. While everyone is trying to make sure that the sudden disruption doesn't hamper business as usual, there's definitely things people are facing while working from home, like prolonged working hours, webinars, screen fatigue. I think we have a new term called Zoom fatigue. We would love to know how you are ensuring that employees are not nearing burnout. If you, Krish?
So I think
it starts
we
from...
probably... Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead, Krish.
Okay. So in our case, I think it starts from managers, educating the managers about how to manage people, right? And what are they expecting of them? I think that's a good first step to give the comfort level to allow people to actually say, hey, I'm not available at this time, right? So over communicating is something that we are trying to encourage people. And then we listen to a few podcasts related to how do you effectively work from home, right? As an individual, where you get comfortable with even saying, I'm going to be away for the next 2 hours, and actually saying it and then going away, and your colleagues respecting that and not trying to make you feel guilty. I think there is a 2-way education that needs to happen, one at a manager level and at all the individual levels, to adjust to this so that people don't feel guilty about either taking the day off. And the biggest problem is also people not taking days off, because we also come from a cultural background where we have to explain ourselves to actually say, I have to be sick to take the day off, or I have to have something else that is urgent to take the day off. No, actually, if you're feeling good, those are also reasons to actually take the day off, and you might want to spend the time not doing anything else. And that reset is also essential. So deliberately over communicating these aspects to educate the team about some of this, and also the managers to do that, are things that we are trying to do. But there is still more to do.
See, one of the things I wanted to call out, and especially I actually spoke about this in our all hands also, like, see, you have to understand that there is a manager schedule and there is a maker schedule, right? So people like us, maybe in Zoom meetings all day long, but people who are like developers or marketers who write content, and there are a lot of people who are like, they have to find the time to work. So let's not make the mistake that if you attend Zoom meetings all day, you are actually doing work, right? So that's being busy. There's a difference between being busy and doing work. So my biggest worry is, how do we create the mental space, the time for those people who are on maker schedule, for them to make software or make a design or whatever that they're doing, right? So, and it's very important because people can just be in all meetings. There are Zoom meetings happening all day long, and you're attending all those meetings. So that's where burnout also comes. In fact, many times families are saying, hey, like he's in meeting from all day long, like from morning to night, he's working more than he ever worked even in office, right? So I think we should avoid that. In fact, that's why in our all hands, I was giving some movie recommendations and so on, because we all know that it's the new normal. It's okay. It's okay to work for 2-3 hours. Maybe you go and watch an Amazon Prime movie or whatever, fall asleep sometime, then come back and work. So because you can't just, you have to deal with the new situation at home, right? So in fact, we did a lot. So over and above, I think we already covered, Suresh and I covered the different things that we were doing to keep employees in a positive state of mind. But most important thing is, it's also okay to let employees know that, hey, it's okay if you're not feeling like, we did a hackathon. The biggest learning there was, see, a hackathon is not a great idea when everybody is remote, because a hackathon is like a mini startup culture, right? In 2 days, you can do a lot of work because you're actually meeting face to face and discussing. There are no meetings that you have to go to, and you're just spending day and night. And when hackathons were done remotely and people had to connect via Zoom to talk to others, it wasn't a great experience, right? So I think what I'm saying is, how do we create all of, so you have to let people know that it's okay to even have a dip in productivity if needed. That's okay. Like if you're not feeling great, take the time off, as Krish was saying. So I think I'll stop there.
Okay. I'll move on to another question. I know we're running slightly behind on time, but I know there are a ton of questions that people have asked, and I want to do justice. So bear with us. We'll at least take another 2 or 3 questions before we go to a close. Slightly changing tracks. There are a ton of questions that people have asked around culture and how do you ensure that there's no burnout. And I think you all answered that quite eloquently. There's one other subject, which is, can you comment on the cost benefit of employees working from home? Would that be a consideration that companies should think about? Will that influence the decision of having people work remote? And what are the main challenges that you face, when you think about all the facility space that you have, and you're now making the decision to go work from anywhere?
I think probably Girish is better to answer, because yes, the largest facility, but my one-line answer is there is tremendous cost benefit advantage in working from remote. So it's pretty obvious. But I think there are other implications like culture, getting to knowing each other. But from a cost perspective, I think Girish is probably better positioned to answer this.
Yeah, actually, Suman is in a better position, but I'll just say, see, while there are cost benefit, we would never do it for that reason. So that's my answer. So I think because we fundamentally believe in our office being an integral part of our overall Freshworks experience. Obviously, when you don't have to run all these facilities and you don't have to pay the rent, there is going to be that benefit. But I think companies, we will, I think we don't know. The reality is we don't know the answer of how this is going to pan out, right? Maybe, I don't think it will be either extreme. So I don't think everybody is going to go back to office and start working as if their life is as before. And I don't think everybody is going to shut themselves at home and continue to enjoy this lockdown. So I think, so you'll have to have both. So, but we will not do it for cost.
Right. And it's not just the cost of employee from an office cost perspective that is important. Just like how in a recurring revenue, we think about lifetime value of a customer. The lifetime value of the employee increases, their productivity increases after you are able to retain them longer, train them up and do that. So I think it has more to do with, we should think in terms of how long are we able to train, retain them, and then get them at their productive best, and are able to help build a career path even while adapting to a remote work and a talent war that's going to be there, where they are going to have more options as well. Right? All of that will play a huge factor. So it's not just going to be in one vector. The advantage will not be in just one vector and cost advantage.
I'll take one last question. And this is an interesting one. So with everything going remote, distributed offices, people working from anywhere, how do you think recruitment is going to change? We're all used to meeting people face to face and making hiring decisions, after we meet somebody face to face. How do you see this changing with the new normal?
Suman, that question is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
We want to hear your answer.
I'm
going to have a filter coffee now.
I think it's an interesting question. Because it is for the panelists, I will throw it open to you, and then we will.
But I think you should give your view.
Sure. I think here's what I would say. It is going to test our ability to really be able to get deeper into what we want to assess in a candidate, right? Just like how it's making us all rethink about how we do coding, how we build products, how we collaborate online. I think recruitment is also another process we will have to rethink about how do we do this online. It's not unthinkable, but it's just going to challenge us in terms of how thorough can we be when we're doing something more remotely. Of course, today with technology, with Zoom, with video, it's almost a near in-person experience. So it's not like you're just over a telephone call, but it is going to challenge our ability to really be well prepared in thinking about what aspects we want to really dig into and how do we assess when somebody is not face to face. But I think this is also a space where I think we will see a lot of paradigm shifts as well in how companies think about hiring and recruiting. That's my response.
So just to add on, I think my personal opinion is onboarding is going to be harder than hiring, right? Exactly. Because how do you onboard a remote employee with the team, with the code base, with the culture, with I don't think it's going to be easy. That's definitely we are also going through that, right? We had actually, I think probably 400 plus people join us in the last quarter, and we still have around 85 plus critical positions that we are hiring and backfill. So getting remotely onboarded is again, from a HR onboarding standpoint, it's probably challenging by itself, but into the team, when you're not meeting people and getting them access to everything. So there is so much of casual knowledge that is dissipated in a workplace, right? People can come and stand next to you and teach you, show you things and all of that. I don't know how all of that is going to happen over Zoom. So that's going to be tough.
Sumant, if you're going to close, I just wanted to 10-15 seconds before we close, and then I wanted to
No, I'm going to turn it over to all of you. I think great discussion. We touched upon so many different aspects in terms of how are we thinking about getting back to work, adjusting to the new normal, how are we really redefining what workplace means, etc. But as we come to a close, I'm going to turn it to each one of you in turn and ask you if there is one piece of advice that you would have for founders and companies as they think about adapting to COVID or opening offices. What would that one advice be? And we can start with you, Suresh.
Oh, okay. I'm actually going to show something quickly, if you don't mind. Sorry. What did I do? Okay. So this is what I would wanted to say. I think what I'm trying to say here is this remote working is completely changing the paradigms that we have understood till now, right? Improved quality of life. There is a larger talent pool. there is a low employee turnover, truly about being vocal about local. All of this is going to change. And there's one thing that I wanted to leave the audience in the mind is the new normal is not about remotely working. It's probably going to be even better than that. We talked about hybrid work. The definition of hybrid work, in my view, is not about some employees working from remote and some employees working from home. It's a completely new way of imagining the work itself. That is the hybrid work that we are talking about. I think the companies which can sort of figure out this paradigm are probably going to have a little bit of edge over other companies, just like, you know, the India versus the rest of the world advantage. I think that's how I personally see it.
Thank you, Suresh. Krish, would you like to share your
sure.
thoughts?
I think the very fact that we are actually able to discuss all of this, right, over a Zoom call, and so many people being able to attend and wanting to be are interested in this. I think the reality is we are all privileged in some way, right, compared to a lot of other industries where even the knowledge dissipation to learn from each other is just not possible, and then they are all trying to like adjust to this and figuring it out. So when it comes to one line of advice, I think more for myself is what are the assumptions that we have? What is it that we should let go of so that we are able to go back to first principles to question that and then rebuild it in a way that we are able to use this, whatever we are going through, and turn it into an advantage would be one word of advice that I have for myself and for everyone to question all your assumptions.
Exactly.
Thank you, Krish. Girish?
So I think assuming there are a lot of startups in the audience, right? I think I would like to make my one line of advice a little bit more tactical and near term. And see, if younger startups, when you have only 5 or 6 employees, you may not have the same problem that a Freshworks or a Kissflow or a Chargebee has, right? So I would say that more tactically, do not rush to open the office in terms of really making sure, because we all have this tendency that, hey, I have to go and get work done as a startup, which is true. But while the need to meet face to face, and the challenges in a 10%, 20% startup is very, very different, right? They don't have the systems and processes. And the joy of being in a startup itself is about being in that closer knit environment and working. So I think as boring as it may sound, like be prepared for the following the protocols. I think at the end of the day, if nobody is tested positive, it's reasonably safe to have like 5, 10 people or 20 people in a building. There's nothing wrong as long as we take the precautions and maintain some social distancing, and just having the personal protective equipment to just not transmit the virus or touch your face and nose, right? And keep ourselves maintain hygiene frequently. So I think I would just say be thoughtful and have a playbook for both your employees and for the workplace, and circulate it widely to everyone, and start thinking about whatever makes best sense for your company. I think we discussed a lot of ideas here from who can come and who's vulnerable and so on. So build your own playbook, and we are happy to share us. But I think that'd be my tactical advice. Don't rush in unprepared. Just it's easy. It's boring, but it can be done. So just plan to this and then take a cautious approach.
Thank you, Girish. And on that note, I want to say thank you to all 3 of you for joining us today and sharing your thoughts, your plans, and some really good ideas. I think it's been an extremely engaging and just a brilliant learning session for all of us. I love the collective learning and collaboration that we're seeing among startups today. And I think all of you have been in the forefront of building and nurturing that ecosystem, and just as you all are doing today. So I want to thank all of you for taking the time to participate in this discussion and just really enriching it with your thoughts and just some wonderful ideas that we have as well. To our audience, I want to say thank you for joining us and for being such an engaged audience. I know the chat group has been very, very active. We've been looking through all the questions that you had. Hopefully we've answered some of them. Unfortunately, we don't have time to get to every single one of them, but I think we touched upon a number of the questions that you all have in your mind. So as we close, I will just say one thing. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I think we would all serve our companies and ourselves well by being more thoughtful about our response to this and how we deal with it. And so with that, I wish you all good luck in your plan. Stay well, stay safe, and I know we will get through this as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.